Listen carefully, because what I'm about to share with you could completely change the way you look at the coins sitting quietly in your drawer, your old wallet, or that forgotten jar tucked away in a cupboard. Before we go any further, take a second right now, hit that subscribe button, and stay with me until the very end, because the last few moments of this story might be the most important you've heard in a long time. There is something fascinating about coins. Not just their metal, not just their design, but the stories they carry. Every scratch, every worn edge, every faded detail is a silent witness to history. And sometimes, hidden in plain sight, an ordinary-looking coin becomes something extraordinary. Today, we are talking about a coin that many people overlook, ignore, or spin without a second thought. The 5 cents 2004 South African coin. At first glance, it doesn't look like much. Small, simple, easy to miss. It doesn't shine like gold. It doesn't carry the weight of silver in your mind. And it certainly doesn't scream valuable when you hold it. But that's exactly why so many people miss what could be right in front of them. Now imagine this. You are going through an old collection. Maybe it belonged to your father, maybe your grandfather, or maybe it's just something you picked up over the years without thinking much about it. You see a few coins, mostly common, nothing special. And then, among them, there's this one coin. A 5 cents piece from 2004. You almost skip it. Almost. But what if you didn't? What if that single decision, to pause, to look closer, was the moment that changed everything? You see, not all coins are created equal. Even coins from the same year, the same country, and the same design can have massive differences in value. It comes down to condition, rarity, minting errors, and sometimes factors that even experienced collectors overlook. The 2004 South African 5 cents coin was produced in large numbers. Yes, millions were minted, and most of them are still only worth their face value or slightly more. But here's where things start to get interesting. Among those millions, there are rare variations. Coins that slipped through the mint with tiny imperfections. Coins that were struck differently. Coins that, over time, became incredibly difficult to find in perfect condition. And that's where the real story begins. Collectors around the world are not just looking for coins. They are hunting for stories, for rarity, for that one piece that stands out from the rest. A coin that has survived in pristine condition for decades is no longer just a coin. It becomes a piece of preserved history. Think about it. A small 5 cents coin from 2004 has now lived through years of circulation, handling, and wear. Most of them are scratched, dull, and heavily used. But a few, just a few, have remained untouched, protected, and nearly perfect. And those are the ones that can change everything. Condition is everything in the world of coin collecting. A worn coin might be worth almost nothing beyond its face value. But the same coin, in uncirculated or mint condition, can be worth hundreds, sometimes thousands, depending on demand and rarity. Now let's go deeper. There are collectors who specialize in South African coins. They understand the history, the minting process, and the subtle differences that others might miss. They know that certain batches of coins from specific years can contain rare variations. These variations might be so small that only a trained eye can spot them. A slight shift in the design, a faint doubling of letters, a tiny misalignment. These are not flaws to collectors. They are treasures, and the 2004 5 cents coin is no exception. Over the years, whispers have spread through collector communities about rare examples of this coin. Coins that were struck with unusual clarity. Coins that showed details sharper than normal. Coins that somehow avoided the usual wear and tear and remained in exceptional condition. Now imagine holding one of those in your hand. Imagine realizing that what you thought was just spare change could actually be something much more. There's a certain thrill in that moment. A realization that you are holding a piece of hidden value. Something overlooked by thousands, maybe millions of people, but recognized by the few who truly understand. And here's the truth that most people don't realize. The value of a coin is not fixed. It's not determined by what you think it's worth. It's determined by what someone else is willing to pay for it. And in the world of rare coins, that number can go far beyond what seems reasonable. Collectors are driven by passion. They are willing to pay extraordinary amounts for the right piece. A coin that completes a collection. A coin that is rare in a specific condition. A coin that tells a story they've been searching for. Now let's talk about the 5 cents 2004 coin in a way that most people never consider. Time changes everything. A coin that is common today might become rare tomorrow. As years pass, coins are lost, damaged, or destroyed. The number of high-quality examples decreases. And as supply goes down, value goes up. It's a simple concept, but one that has created life-changing moments for collectors around the world. There are stories, real stories, of people finding coins in old boxes, in inherited collections, even in everyday change, only to discover that they were worth far more than they ever imagined. And this is why you need to pay attention. Because the difference between an ordinary coin and an extraordinary one often comes down to awareness. That if you don't know what to look for, you might spend it without thinking. You might ignore it. You might let it slip through your fingers without ever realizing what it could have been. But now you do know. You know that condition matters. You know that rarity matters. You know that even a small coin like the 5 cents 2004 can hold hidden potential. So what should you do? You start by looking. Check your coins. Look closely. Pay attention to details. Examine the edges, the lettering, the surface. Does it look sharper than usual? Cleaner? Better preserved? Compare it with others. Notice the differences. And most importantly, don't rush, because sometimes the biggest discoveries come from the smallest moments of patience. Now let's take this even further. Imagine the excitement of finding a coin that stands out. You begin to research. You start to understand what makes it special. You realize that it might be worth something significant. And then comes the moment of truth. You show it to someone who knows. A collector, a dealer, an expert. They examine it carefully. They look at the details. They check the condition. And then they tell you something you never expected to hear. That this coin is not ordinary. That this coin is rare. That this coin is valuable. And suddenly, everything changes. What was once just a small piece of metal becomes something entirely different. Something meaningful. Something powerful. Because it represents possibility. It represents the idea that value can be hidden in plain sight. That opportunity can exist where you least expect it. And that sometimes, the smallest things can have the biggest impact. Now stay with me, because this is where it all comes together. The 5 cents 2004 South African coin, in most cases, is still just a coin. But in rare, exceptional cases, coins in perfect condition, coins with unique characteristics, coins that collectors are searching for, it can reach values that go far beyond imagination. There are collectors who would pay astonishing amounts for the right piece. Not because of the metal, not because of the size, but because of what it represents: rarity, history, perfection. And when those three come together, the result can be extraordinary. So before you dismiss that small coin, before you overlook it, before you spend it without a second thought, remember this moment. Remember that you now see what others don't. Remember that you understand what most people ignore. And remember that sometimes the difference between ordinary and extraordinary is simply knowing where to look. Because out there, right now, there could be someone holding a 5 cents 2004 coin without realizing what it truly is. And that someone could be you. And if you are lucky enough, careful enough, and aware enough, you might just find yourself holding something far more valuable than you ever expected. Something that collectors dream about. Something that turns curiosity into discovery. Something that transforms a simple coin into a story worth telling for the rest of your life. And in the rarest, most extraordinary cases, when everything aligns perfectly, when the condition is flawless, when the rarity is undeniable, and when the right collector sees what you have, that small, overlooked 5 cents 2004 South African coin could reach a staggering value of $14 million. And when you hear a number like that, $14 million, it doesn't just sound surprising, it sounds impossible. Your mind immediately questions it. How can something so small, something so ordinary, something that most people wouldn't even bend down to pick up from the ground, carry that kind of value? That doubt is exactly what keeps these opportunities hidden, because the majority of people never go beyond that first reaction. They laugh, they dismiss it, they move on. And in doing so, they unknowingly allow rare discoveries to pass them by. But you are still here. You are still listening, which means you are already different from most. Let's slow this down and really understand what makes a coin like the 5 cents 2004 South African piece so intriguing. Because it's not just about age. It's not even just about rarity. It's about a combination of factors that, when they come together in a very specific way, create something truly exceptional. Think of it like this. In a large crowd of people, most will look similar at a glance. But every now and then, there is someone who stands out. Not because they are trying to, but because something about them is simply different. Coins are no different. Millions of 5-cent coins were produced in 2004, yes. But not all of them were produced perfectly. The minting process, even with modern technology, is never flawless. There are always slight variations, tiny differences that most people will never notice. But collectors notice. They train their eyes to see what others miss. They study patterns, they compare details, they analyze surfaces. They look for the smallest inconsistencies because those inconsistencies can mean rarity, and rarity is where value begins. Now imagine a coin that was struck with slightly more pressure than usual. The details appear sharper, deeper, more defined. The edges are crisp. The lettering is bold. It stands out when compared side by side with other coins from the same year. To an untrained eye, it might look like just a nice coin. To a collector, it might be something far more important, or consider a coin that somehow avoided circulation altogether. It was never spent, never scratched, never worn down by years of handling. It remained preserved, almost frozen in time. That kind of condition is incredibly rare, especially for lower denomination coins like the 5-cent piece. These coins were meant to be used, passed around, and eventually worn out. Very few were ever kept in pristine condition, and that's why those few become valuable. Now let's take it one step further. There are also minting errors. These are not mistakes in the usual sense. In the world of coin collecting, errors are often the most sought-after pieces. A slight misalignment during striking, a doubling of design elements, an off-center imprint. These are the kinds of things that can turn an ordinary coin into a collector's dream, because errors are unpredictable. They are not supposed to happen. And when they do, they create something unique. Unique means rare. Rare means valuable. Now imagine combining all of these factors into one coin. A 5-cent 2004 South African coin that was struck with exceptional clarity, preserved in near-perfect condition, and carries a subtle but recognizable minting anomaly. That is not just a coin anymore. That is a prize. That is something collectors will compete for. That is something that can drive value to levels most people would never expect. And here is something even more important. Value is not just about the coin itself. It's about timing. It's about demand. It's about who is looking for that exact piece at that exact moment. There might be a collector out there who has spent years building a collection of South African coins. They have almost everything. Every year, every denomination, every variation. But they are missing one piece. One specific coin that completes their collection. And if that coin happens to be the one you are holding, then suddenly, its value is no longer theoretical. It becomes very real, because now it's not just a coin, it's the missing piece of a puzzle, and people will pay extraordinary amounts to complete something they have invested years into. Now take a moment and think about that. Think about how many coins are sitting unnoticed around the world. In drawers, in boxes, in jars, in old collections that haven't been touched in years. Among them, there could be rare pieces, valuable pieces, life-changing pieces, but they remain hidden because no one takes the time to look closely. This is why awareness is everything, because once you understand what to look for, everything changes. You stop seeing coins as just money. You start seeing them as possibilities. You start paying attention. You start noticing details. You start asking questions. And that is where discovery begins. Now let's bring this back to you. Right now, you have an advantage that most people don't. You have knowledge. You know that even a small, seemingly insignificant coin like the 5-cent 2004 South African piece can hold hidden potential. You know that condition matters. You know that rarity matters. You know that errors matter. And most importantly, you know that value is not always obvious. So the next time you come across a coin like this, don't rush. Don't ignore it. Don't assume it's worthless. Take a closer look. Hold it under the light. Turn it slowly. Examine every detail, because that small moment of attention could be the difference between missing something ordinary and discovering something extraordinary. And here's the truth that many collectors learn over time. The biggest finds don't always come from expensive purchases or rare auctions. Sometimes they come from the most unexpected places, from loose change, from inherited collections, from coins that others have overlooked. That is where the real excitement lies. That is where the real stories begin. And that is why this journey is so powerful, Because it's not just about money, that it's about discovery, it's about curiosity, and it's about the thrill of finding something valuable where others see nothing. And when that moment happens, when you realize that you are holding something special, something rare, something that others would be willing to pay a premium for, it changes the way you see everything. Suddenly, coins are no longer just coins. They become opportunities. They become stories. They become treasures. And in the rarest, most extraordinary situations, when everything aligns perfectly, when the right coin meets the right collector at the right time, that small, overlooked 5 cents 2004 South African coin can rise beyond expectations once again. Not just hundreds, not just thousands, but into a realm of value that most people would never believe, that a realm where passion, rarity, and timing come together to create something unforgettable, that a realm where a simple coin becomes a legend. And that is why you must never underestimate what you hold, because sometimes the smallest object in your hand carries the biggest potential of your life. All it takes is one moment of awareness, point one careful look, point one decision not to ignore what others overlook. And that could be the moment everything changes for you.